Most people think the hardest part of money is becoming rich. It's not. For most people, the hardest part is saving the first $5,000. Because before that point, money feels slippery. It comes in, it goes out, and there's never quite enough left over to feel safe. You work, you pay bills, you promise yourself you'll start saving next month, and then life shows up with another surprise. Here's the surprising part. The biggest shift isn't about the money itself. It's about who you become once you realize you can actually keep some of what you earn, instead of watching it disappear. And after that first $5,000, things don't get magically easy. But they do get different. In this video, I want to tell you a story. Not about a millionaire. Not about someone who started a company in their garage and sold it for millions. This is about someone much more ordinary. Someone who could easily be your coworker, your neighbor, or you, sitting on your couch at the end of a long week, scrolling, wondering why money always feels just out of reach. We're going to walk through his story, from stress and quiet financial pressure, to the moment everything shifted after saving that first $5,000. Along the way, I'll pull out the lessons he learned. No tricks. No, just hustle harder. Just small, realistic shifts anyone can make, slowly over time. Meet Daniel. He's 31. He lives in a mid-sized U.S. city. Not New York, not the kind of place with chain restaurants, crowded strip malls, and traffic that's annoying but survivable. He works a normal job. Not terrible. Not amazing. Just normal. A salary that covers rent, food, gas, and feels like it should be enough, but never quite stretches as far as it looks on paper. He doesn't think of himself as bad with money. He just thinks life is expensive. There's rent. There's the car payment. There's streaming services that somehow multiplied. There's takeout on nights he's too tired to cook after work. There are weddings, birthdays, coworkers' baby showers, a phone that cracked at the worst possible time. There's always something. He has about 3 different past versions of New Year's resolutions that included start saving seriously. And like a lot of people, he has a quiet belief he rarely says out loud. I'll start saving when I make more. Because the problem, in his mind, is income. If he could just bump it up, 1 promotion, 1 raise, then he'd finally be able to save. Until then, he's just doing his best. At the beginning of our story, Daniel has about $600 in his checking account on a good day. Sometimes it dips lower. His credit card carries a balance that feels like background noise. Not catastrophic. Not tiny. Just always there, like a song playing in another room. Minimum payments are set on autopay. He doesn't like to look at the statements. His favorite coping line is, "It'll sort itself out when things calm down." Except life never really calms down. There's always something next. And that something next keeps stealing the future from the present. He's not reckless. He's not buying luxury watches or sports cars. He's buying convenience, relief, and a break from stress. He's buying Friday nights where he doesn't have to cook. He's buying upgrades that make a long day feel slightly more worth it. He's buying the feeling of, I earned this. And he has no idea that these tiny, harmless-seeming decisions are the real story. The conflict doesn't arrive as a dramatic crisis. That's the thing about money. It doesn't always explode. Sometimes it just slowly tightens. In Daniel's case, it showed up in the form of a dentist bill. Nothing dramatic. Just a root canal he didn't expect. Insurance covered some, but not all. He had 2 options. Put it on the card, or admit he didn't have the money. He put it on the card, of course. That bill joined the others, and the balance crept up. Then the interest hit. And here's where something shifted, not financially at first, but emotionally. He looked at the statement and realized he was paying interest on things that no longer existed. Takeout from weeks ago. Gas from a month ago. Groceries he'd already eaten. It felt like he was renting his own past. Like the present version of him was still paying the tab for the tired, stressed past version of him. And he hated that feeling. That was the first crack in the story he'd been telling himself. I just need to make more. Because now he saw something else. Even if he made more, the habits were the same. This is where the real struggle began, not with numbers, but with identity. Daniel had always quietly believed he just wasn't a saver. Some people in his mind were born organized, born disciplined, born with color-coded spreadsheets and 3-month emergency funds. He wasn't one of them. He was the winging it type. And your identity is powerful. If you believe you're bad with money, you'll subconsciously act in ways that prove yourself right. Not because you're lazy, but because your brain loves consistency. So Daniel faced something uncomfortable. It wasn't only the bills. It wasn't only the income. A big part of the problem was the story he believed about himself. That realization stung. But it was also the beginning of everything changing. The turning point didn't arrive with fanfare. There was no motivational speech. No viral video. No, from broke to billionaire, inspiration. It was a Tuesday night. He was scrolling, exhausted, and saw his credit card balance again. He noticed something that landed differently this time. The interest charge. Not the balance. Not the purchases. Just that one line. Interest. Money he was paying for nothing new. Money he had to give away simply because past Daniel hadn't planned. He sat there for a long moment and thought, I'm working hard for a bank's profit line. Not in an angry, conspiracy way. Just in a tired, honest way. And another thought followed it. Nobody is coming to fix this for me. Not a raise. Not a bonus. Not the future, better version of himself. Just him, right now, deciding whether things would stay the same. He didn't suddenly become a financial guru. He didn't download 8 apps or color-code envelopes. He did something smaller. He decided to save $1,000. Not change his life. Not retire early. Just $1,000. Something real. Something visible. Something his brain could believe. That small, believable target is what changed the trajectory. The next months were not glamorous. He didn't move to a tiny apartment. He didn't sell all his belongings. He didn't live on rice and beans. He did something harder. He changed quietly. He started pausing before impulse buys. He noticed how often "I deserve this" showed up in his head when he was tired or stressed. He canceled a couple of subscriptions he'd forgotten about. He cooked at home 1 or 2 extra nights a week. He stopped buying little upgrades just because faster shipping, the premium option, the larger soda, the nicer trim level. None of these things made him rich. But they did something more powerful. They began to prove to his brain that he was capable of keeping money. For the first time, his account didn't immediately drop to near zero between paychecks. He watched the numbers slowly grow. $200. $450. $800. Every milestone came with a surprising emotion. He wasn't excited in a fireworks way. He just felt slightly less fragile. When Daniel hit $1,000 saved, his life didn't transform. The sky didn't open. Cars didn't become cheaper. Bills didn't disappear. But something inside him shifted. He realized this. I did this without my income changing. Same job. Same city. Same life. Different habits. And that broke his old belief. The belief that I'll save when I earn more. He no longer had to wait for some future version of life to begin. It had already started. That changed the question from, how do I make more? To, how do I manage what I have differently? That's when the goal changed from $1,000 to $5,000. Not because $5,000 is magical, but because it represented something powerful. Options. Here's where the story widens beyond Daniel. The first $5,000 matters not only because of the money itself, but because of the psychological shift behind it. At $5,000, something becomes real. You're no longer one small surprise away from panic. A flat tire becomes annoying, not catastrophic. A medical copay becomes inconvenient, not identity-threatening. You stop living life one emergency away from everything unraveling. That's what changes. Not luxury. Not status. Stability. $5,000 is proof. Proof that you can delay gratification. You can break autopilot. You can keep promises to yourself. And those skills scale far beyond the $5,000 itself. Most people hear compounding and think about interest rates, calculators, and charts. But compounding starts earlier than that. Confidence compounds. Discipline compounds. Identity compounds. Once Daniel saved $5,000, something important clicked. Money wasn't about willpower bursts. It was about systems. He stopped asking, "How do I stay motivated?" and started asking, "How do I make this automatic?" He set up an automatic transfer the day after each paycheck. He treated savings like rent, non-negotiable. He didn't always feel like saving. He saved anyway because the system did it for him. Motivation became optional. And here's the bigger theme. He realized income mattered, but mindset controlled whether income stayed. Before $5,000, every extra dollar vanished into lifestyle creep. Slightly nicer dinners, slightly better gadgets, slightly faster shipping. After $5,000, extra dollars had a job. They weren't a reward. They were seeds. Here's something we don't talk about enough. Most financial decisions are emotional first and logical second. Daniel used to spend emotionally. Long day? Buy something. Lonely weekend? Delivery food and scrolling purchases. Stress? Add to cart. He wasn't buying items. He was buying feelings. And none of that made him a bad person. It made him human. But once he had savings, those feelings shifted. He didn't need to buy calm anymore. He owned a little of it. That's one of the biggest, invisible returns of the first $5,000. You sleep differently. You answer unexpected bills differently. You stop feeling like life is happening at you and start feeling like you have a small steering wheel. Not total control, nobody has that, but influence. Before saving, money is like a treadmill. You're running hard, but the speed keeps increasing. Interest, fees, surprise expenses, the treadmill speeds up. You get tired. You run harder. You don't move forward. After your first $5,000, the feeling changes. You're still walking uphill, life doesn't flatten, but now the ground is solid. You're not sprinting to stay in place. You can stop for breath without falling off. That's the real change. Not wealth, but traction. Let's be clear. Daniel didn't become rich overnight. He didn't quit his job and move to a beach. He didn't start day trading or chasing crypto spikes. His life, from the outside, looked almost the same. Same job. Same apartment. Same car. But internally, everything was different. He had a $5,000 cushion. A plan for debt. A habit of saving automatically. A calmer relationship with money. A new identity. I'm someone who can save. And because he believed that, his actions continued to reinforce it. The external world didn't magically transform. He did. That's the real, everything changes. Here are the biggest lessons from Daniel's story. First, saving is less about income and more about identity. Higher income without better habits just scales your mistakes. Second, systems beat motivation. Automatic transfers, separate savings accounts, and pay yourself first are boring phrases and life-changing behaviors. Third, your first $5,000 is mostly about psychology. It is proof of ability, not arrival at some finish line. Fourth, lifestyle creep is quiet, reasonable, socially normal, and incredibly powerful. It rarely feels like a big decision. It's the daily $5, $10, $20 shifts that silently write your financial story. Fifth, you don't escape financial stress by avoiding feelings. You escape it by building a small buffer between you and chaos. That buffer doesn't solve every problem, but it gives you room to think. Let's explain a few key ideas simply. Interest on debt is like a treadmill that speeds up while you're getting tired. The longer you're on it, the faster it goes. Savings, on the other hand, is like pushing a snowball. At first, it barely moves. Then it picks up snow. Then gravity helps. The first $5,000 is you packing the snowball tight enough that it doesn't fall apart when you roll it. Compounding is time becoming your teammate. It's not about doubling your money overnight. It's about tiny, almost boring growth adding up quietly in the background while you live your life. And your future self? They're either your employee or your boss. You're either working for your past choices, or your past choices are working for you. Minimum payments keep you working for the past. Savings turns your past self into someone who supports you. That's the difference. Let's bring this to you. If you're watching this and your balance is low, or your credit card feels like background noise, you're not broken. You're not bad with money. You've just been operating without a buffer, under constant pressure. Here are a few small, practical steps. You don't have to do them all at once. Pick one and begin. Choose a small, believable target. Not, I'll save $50,000. Try $500, then $1,000, then $5,000. Make savings automatic. Treat it like rent. Non-negotiable. Let systems protect you from your tired days. Notice emotional spending without shaming yourself. Ask, what am I trying to feel right now? Instead of, why am I like this? Create friction for spending, not saving. Separate accounts. Remove saved cards on shopping sites. Make impulse buying slightly inconvenient. Watch lifestyle creep. Every raise doesn't need a new payment attached to it. Respect small amounts. The first few $100s feel insignificant, but they are the foundation of everything else. Use money to buy stability first, then comfort. Comfort without stability turns into anxiety later. None of these are flashy. They don't look impressive on social media. And that's exactly why they work. Here's the quiet truth. Your life doesn't change when you hit some giant number. It changes the moment you realize you're capable of changing your direction. That first $5,000 is not about wealth. It's about relief. It's about dignity. It's about seeing yourself differently. It's about no longer feeling like life is a series of financial fires you're constantly trying to stamp out barefoot. It's about having just enough distance from chaos that you can finally think about the future without flinching. If you're at the stage where saving feels impossible, you're not behind. You're just at the hard part. The first $5,000 is the steepest section of the climb. After that, your habits, your identity, and a little bit of compounding start to help you. You don't need perfection. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You just need small consistency, the kind that feels almost boring. One less upgrade. One automatic transfer. One promise kept to yourself. Everything doesn't change because of the money. Everything changes because of the person you become on the way to saving it. Start where you are. Start small. And let time do what time does best.